Hey guys. So, again, still not that much in the politics right now. It's starting to ramp up a little bit, and it's getting a little bit more interesting. But I'm still mostly interested in just following my little hobbies. For example, I've been watching a guy called Jay Barino on YouTube. And he has been around for a really long time. Like, over 13 years. And one of the main things he plays is Warcraft, especially like Warcraft custom campaigns. And he has been playing for like 8 years now a custom campaign called Legends of Arkain. And I find like the whole thing really interesting because it's kind of like a more dark version of Warcraft, I guess, where like humans and orcs absolutely despise each other. Like they would never work with each other. Like, if anything, if they ever work with each other, it's because one side basically enslaves the other. Like that's the only way that they would ever even consider it. And even then, there's like a huge argument within the universe about whether or not you can even coexist with them as a servant race. And it's the orcs that mostly hate the humans. Like, the humans are like, have a lot of political intrigue. They're fighting each other all the time. And the orcs are like honest and open. And even though they're brutal, they don't like intrigue. They don't like backstabbing. Or like little political games. That kind of stuff. And I think it makes for a really interesting universe. And it just got me thinking of like, you know, if you like Lord of the Rings or Warcraft or what else? Warhammer Fantasy, for example. Or what's the name of that anime? It has the character Laios, and it's like Marcel. I've been seeing a lot of shorts on like it's Dungeons something. It's an anime and manga before that, obviously, but it has a lot of interesting stuff in it. Like, for example, kobolds are basically dog people. And it got me thinking of like a universe where you have like all the factions that you would normally see in a fantasy setting, but like the alliances between the races are really strange. Like, for example, in Warcraft, like all the human races, or the races that are most closely related to humanity, are all allied with each other. Like, you have the humans, you have the dwarves, you have the gnomes, you have the high elves, you have the night elves, like all working together. And then on the other side, you have like the monster races. You have like the orcs, the trolls, the ogres, the goblins, the Tauren, or in like other universes, they would be called minotaurs, working together. And it kind of makes sense in a way. It's like, okay, so like all the people that are green-skinned or yellow-skinned or, you know, got that gray pallor to them, like they're all allied with each other for one reason or another. But it just like makes me think of like a weird universe where like all the races have alliances, and it doesn't really make any sense, like how they're like set up. And it gets into like, oh well, the kobolds are aligned with humanity, and it's like, well, how the hell did that happen? It doesn't really make any sense. Wouldn't the kobolds be seen as monsters and unintelligent creatures? Therefore, like, humans would see them as like dirty, smelly, and like musty and whatever. And then it's like then you get into like the internal politics within the universe. Now, I love universes that have internal politics. I don't like universes that like to draw in for like real world politics. For example, in Arkain, I've been watching all the videos that are that Jay Barrino played of Arkain, and it's a huge campaign. Like it's bigger than Warcraft 3 and Warcraft Frozen Throne combined. Like the playtime is ginormous. It's huge. Like we're talking about like 300 videos, each one at least like half an hour to 45 minutes long, sometimes longer even. We're talking about a massive series. Now, to be fair, Jay Barrino played Arkain before it was fully fleshed out, so he replayed it once like the finalized version came out, like the all overhauled, easier, more fun, less tedious version had been created. But anyways, like I was saying, in Arkain there is some like real world politics that seeps into it. For example, there's like a female orc, a strong female woman who tells all the men around her that like they're wrong and that they need to do things her way and that they need to stop being so closed-minded and they have to let the women fight and like all that stuff. And it's like basically like a feminist like movement inside the universe in like a medieval setting with like the most brutal like savage race in the universe. And it's like oh god. Okay, yeah, sure. Strong female women. It's like in Warcraft, there are no female orcs, like at all, in like any of the games, as far as I remember. Maybe there's like some obscure hero from the original Warcraft or Warcraft 2 that I'm unaware about. But in Warcraft 3, there are no like female orcs at all that are like someone you can play as. No heroes, not even like grunt units. Like every single unit in the orc tech tree is a male, it seems like. Now again, it doesn't really matter if there's like a female here or there, but when you have like, you add in like an orc who adopted a human female, and this human female has got crazy ideas about enslaving the humans instead of wiping them all out. And like you add in like two other female orcs who like absolutely hate the male leadership and they want to take over the tribe, and they were considered too extreme and they got exiled and they end up taking over the tribe. It's a little bit silly. It's a little bit like, what are we doing here? Like, what? Like, you don't have to turn. Okay, I'm not gonna spoil the story, but like, one of the characters is like a dude, like the son of the war chief, and he is, gameplay wise, he was a weak hero. Like, he wasn't designed very well. He was weak. Eventually, it became an intentional design choice that he was like this guy who didn't live up to his people's standards. And he has a sister who has magical powers, who's more like adept than him. Maybe not physically stronger, but more magically inclined. And she hates him. Like, she absolutely despises him. Like, they fight each other. There's no love there whatsoever. And she wants to take over the tribe. And it's just like, why do they gotta hate each other? Why can't she just be like, I love you, brother. I mean, I'm gonna do everything I can to support you. You know, so like some subversion. It's like, no, we have to overthrow this guy and take control of the tribe and have the women rule instead of the males. And again, there is such a thing as like a strong female character that's not like stupid. But this is not one of those characters. Like every single time like a male character is brought up, like the female character absolutely hates them, like despises them, sees them as weak, sees them as pathetic, doesn't show them any respect, even if it's their elder or their father or their, you know, like there's this huge thing in like in fiction in general, where to make the female strong, they have to make her hate every single male authority figure in her life. And it's frustrating. But Arkain, I would highly recommend it. Despite this minor gripe about the universe, there's a lot of things going for it that I haven't mentioned. And I don't want to talk too long on it because I don't want to spoil a lot of the stuff that happens. But it's actually a really well-written story. There's just some minor gripes I have with some of the side characters who they try to force to be main characters. But it's a universe where people can die. Where, like, people, like, some of the characters that you have had for a while just end up getting knocked off because of, like, something that might not even be their fault. Like, they're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's a very realistic and grounded universe, and I really appreciate that. Again, minor gripes about it. I want to go play it myself at this point, especially the finished version. It's just it would take so long to get through all the games. Also, the lore behind the story is a little bit strange. It goes by Warcraft 2 logic. And this is another thing about fantasy universes. This is something that Warcraft 3 did right, is that each campaign followed on the backside of the previous campaign. So it was all one grand story, one timeline, one giant story. Whereas in Warcraft 2 and Warcraft 1, if you played the human campaign in the first Warcraft game, you would have like all these missions and you have to like defeat these different like enemies, and you would have to fight through this like this and this like maps, and each map would have this and this objectives, and it was alright. And if you played the Orc campaign, you would play through basically the exact same missions with the exact same objectives, but the maps were different. So instead of like, if you played the human campaign, like the last mission would be attacking the Orc capital, which is in like a desert or something like that. And you have to defeat the Orcs at their capital. But if you play the Orc campaign, you instead attack the human capital, which is in this grassy like area that's along the coastline. Again, like map 1 and map 1 of both campaigns are basically the same mission with the same objectives, but the location is different. So the human campaign and the Orc campaign are two different timelines. In the human campaign, you fight through the Orcs, fighting through their lands until you get to their capital. Where in the Orc campaign, you fight through the human lands until you get to the human capital. And it was determined that the Orcs canonically won Warcraft, the original Warcraft game, and that the humans won Warcraft 2 and Warcraft 2's expansion. And again, it's the same thing in Warcraft 2, where you would get basically the same type of missions in the original Warcraft 2, but with different maps. So if you play the Orc campaign, you do a defense mission of this small town, and eventually you work your way up to invading human lands, and then you eventually attack the human capital. And maybe the last mission is a little bit different between the two, like, campaigns. But with the human campaign, it's like the same thing. It's like, one of the first missions is you're defending like a small human town, and then you eventually work your way up to attacking human lands until you eventually, or orc lands until you eventually get to the orc capital. I think I got that right. I got slightly confused there on which race I started talking about. I think it was the humans. But it is what it is. And it's basically the same thing with the original Arkain maps. And it's even odder than that. Sometimes, like, for example, in Arkain, like, if you play the human campaign, you fight against the orcs, and you can make a bunch of choices, and this is what makes the campaign so great, is that there's a bunch of choices that you can make throughout the game, and eventually, like, each of these choices affect later maps, either making them easier, making them harder, opening up different options, giving you different units, what have you. Like, doing like a bunch of different stuff, and it changes the outcomes. It determines who lives and who dies by the end of the campaign. And if you play optimally, if you like try to get the best ending, like a lot more of your characters will survive, what have you, and you defeat the other opponents, and you wipe out the enemies, and like some like heroes on the orc side die. But if you play the orc campaign, those heroes survive, and they end up like continuing on, and some of the human like heroes die instead. And so it's like two different timelines. So it's kind of hard to tell, like, okay, what was the canon timeline? Because there's the first human book, then the first orc book, then the first undead book. And then those choices carry over to, like, the second human book, the second orc book, and the second undead book. And then you kind of just get into, okay, so what's the actual canon? Like, because eventually he makes the guy Shard Dundred made another series that follows on with it, and he had to choose like what the actual canon of the story was. And it gets a little bit strange. I haven't watched the videos on the new version of the campaign, because if you play the orc campaign, like, you would expect some of the human heroes die in the orc campaign, and therefore they don't continue on, or they lose a major battle. The humans are defeated in a major battle and they're pushed back, what have you. Whereas if you play the human campaign, those heroes survive and some of the orc heroes die instead. But for some reason, there's like a major character, I'm not going to say who it is, but in the second human campaign, he dies. But in the second orc campaign, he survives. Like, there's no way to save him in the human campaign, but he somehow survives in the orc campaign, despite the fact that he's not an ally of the orcs. He is a definitive enemy of the orcs. But for some reason, no matter how well you play the human campaign, even if you get the best ending in the human campaign, you can't save this character. But you can save him in the orc campaign, even though he's a major enemy of the orcs. It's like, what? Why? So wait, if I want one of my favorite main characters to survive, I has to make sure that his faction loses. And he doesn't even die in like a heroic fashion. He doesn't like go out in a blaze of glory, taking down like an opponent or anything like that. He dies kind of a pathetic death, honestly. And it's just kind of weird. And again, all this got me thinking. And I'm gonna circle back around to where I was originally going with this, because I love singing the praises of Arkain and like fantasy stories in general. But like, I would like a universe, and I'm not saying like don't go to Arkain, because Arkain is very good in its own way. But I would like a universe where like there's like this strange like alliance between the races. Like, for example, you don't expect the humans to have an alliance with the kobolds. And if they do have an alliance with the kobolds, you would expect them to like kind of like look down on them, like mistreat them, treat them as like second-class citizens or whatever. Again, because they're like animals, they're more like, they're less intelligent. They're like, you know, they're like dirty, they're smelly, they don't bathe as often. They get like fleas and whatever, or they like crawl in the mud, what have you. But I'd like a universe where they are unironically like allied with each other, and they're actually like, they work together like really well. And it's not the people that you expect. So like, the story I was thinking of, for example, would be like, okay, a human like princess is traveling to a neighboring kingdom, and she is to marry the prince of that kingdom for a political alliance. And in this political alliance, like, she is supposed to, she travels with like a personal guard and like, I don't know, 100 men, 50 men, whatever. And they are attacked by like a bandits. And these bandits could be anything. They could be peasants, they could be like a formal nobleman, like some like a neighboring kingdom that was destroyed, and now they're like rebels or whatever, and they turn to banditry, you know, whatever. But they take down the guards, they capture the princess, they send like a message to the king demanding a ransom, both to the king and to like the husband to be, what have you. And they try to get like a ransom for her or whatever. And then like they happen into an area full of kobolds, and like these kobolds have been fighting with these rebels for a while. The bandits look down upon them. They think they're just like random beasts. They don't really care about them. They mistreat them. They try to drive them out wherever they can. They hunt them for sport, what have you. And the kobolds just kind of take it. Like, they're afraid that if they like try to take down the bandits, that they'll be wiped out. That they're like, it's better to just lay low and to avoid them and what have you. But then they find like that they have captured this woman, and they're like mistreating her, and they're like dragging her, and they're laughing, and like the kobolds like see this, and they're just absolutely disgusted. They're just so sick of these bandits. They're like killing their women and children, and now they're abusing like this innocent girl who seems to be relatively noble, like beautiful by human standards. Like, this must be someone important or whatever. Or it's like, there's clearly something like deeper than them just like having a human woman here. Like, they're smart enough to suss out something is going on with this human woman. So they decide to like attack the bandits, and they wipe the bandits out, and they save this human woman. Now at this point you would think like the king, or like the I keep trying to say bride, but that's not, the groom, that's it, the groom, to be like shows up and then thinks that the kobolds kidnapped the woman and that they're gonna eat her or something like that. But like, no, nothing like that happens. They like, the kobolds like are intelligent enough, they can speak English, they like talk to the woman, and they're like asking her questions, like trying to figure out where she came from, like why the bandits wanted her, what have you. and they're like talking, and they like come over and they like ask her questions about it, and they're like, okay, so what is your deal? Like, why are you here? Like, what's going on? And they're like, and she tells them, it's like, well, I was traveling to the neighboring kingdom, and they were all my guards are dead. People I've known for years, like my loyal servants, like people that like I knew and cared about. They had wives and children and what have you, and then now like the children are now fatherless, and I don't know how I'm going to get there without them, and how to tell their families, what have you. And the kobolds think about it, and they're just like, you know what? Yeah, fine. We never really got along with them that much. We just kind of avoided them, but we'll bring you to the kingdom that you were supposed to go to. And they bring them, and like at first the humans are like they're not angry. They're not like trying to like take them out or anything. They're not hostile to these kobolds, but they're just so vastly confused on what they're doing. And then they see the princess, and then they're like kind of up in arms, but like the kobolds and like the princess like no. These kobolds saved me. If it wasn't for them, I would be like defiled, and I might be dead, and like my father would have to have paid a rich ransom for them. Like it would have hurt the kingdom and weakened our standing on the world stage. Like it would have ruined so much for us. Like had they not been there, they saved me. And like they're confused about it, and then they're like, well, I guess come in. Like they invite the kobolds in. And again, it's like one of those things where you think like, oh, the princess is beloved by the people. Like the peasants absolutely love her, and therefore the peasants are the most grateful, and they're the ones who love the kobolds. And like it's like it's the noblemen that look down on those filthy kobolds. And it's like, no, that's not it at all. It turns out that like the kobolds, well, not as intelligent, not as like advanced, not as technologically sophisticated or as educated as like the humans. Like it turns out that they are really good at what they do. Like they're fantastic hunters, for example. Like dogs are great, but like it's easy to train a dog. It's hard to teach a dog. And what I mean is it's for like guide dogs or military dogs or police dogs, for example. You can train them up to a certain point, but you have to teach the dog to make decisions. You have to teach the dog that, like, okay, my human has fallen over or whatever, like they're hurt, they're wounded, they had a heart attack, whatever. You have to train the dog to seek out help and like go and like find the nearest police officer or what have you, or drag them outside, or even do something insane like dial 911 or something and bark into the phone. Like something like teach the dog to have an actual decision-making tree. So dogs are really good for hunting. But if you have a kobold, while they might not run as fast as a hunting dog, their nose is just as good as a hunting dog. They're just as they're good at tracking. They're like out in the wilderness all the time, so they have more skill than the average person because they had to hunt their own food. Like the average prince may be an amazing hunter, but they can't smell the deer from like 3 miles away. And while it's nice to have a hunting dog, it's even better to have a hunting dog that can get into tight spaces, like say a log or something. But it's also really nice to have a kobold that can tell you exactly what direction it is and how far away it is and how many there are. And like actually communicate like numbers and location and tell you exactly like what they're doing and which way they're facing. Like a dog can't speak, but a kobold can. So it would be like, it's the noblemen. Like, the noblemen of all people look at these kobolds and they're like, I love these kobolds. I always take one on. I always have one in my retinue. And they don't see them as like as a normal servant. They see them as like a top member of their retinue. Like somebody that they have to have, that they have to respect, that they absolutely love to have with them on every major hunt. Like literally men's best friend. Like this kobold is the best friend that I've ever had, because my God, they are way better than my stupid brother in hunting. I'd rather have that kobold than like Henry out here with me. Like, God damn. It's like, and then it's like also, like the kobolds are also really good at like fighting in the swamps and like traversing like really disgusting areas. And again, you would think it's the noblemen who like look down on these people, and they think the kobolds are like dirty and smelly and absolutely worthless, and like they shouldn't, like they don't like these people. But it like, no, it actually turns out that any general worth their salt is like, hell yeah, these kobolds are awesome. I love these kobolds. They can get through this area, they can get around, they can flank, like they'll never betray you. They're absolutely loyal. While they're a little bit like disgusting once they come out of the swamp, you can give them a bath. That's fine. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, they came around. They saved my life on numerous occasions. Hell, they saved the life of my father and my grandfather before him. Like, these kobolds are absolutely vital for military strategy. And they just absolutely just adore the kobolds in their ranks. Like, they just absolutely appreciate how loyal and honest and just absolutely wonderful the kobolds are. And I just like, and it's like the peasants that are like, oh, they never see a kobold, and like the kobolds kind of smell, and like, why would anyone want to hang out with a kobold? They're kind of gross. Like, what's the point of this? It's like we don't have kobolds where I'm from. It's like like ignorant peasants that just like don't get it. Like, they don't understand like why the noblemen put up with these smelly, unintelligent creatures. I mean, why would they bother with these things? Like, is our Lord insane? Is he like, and like some like king gets like the moniker the Mad because he has like an entire retinue of kobolds that he takes around with him at all times, and like the peasants just think he's absolutely insane for doing this. Like, it's like the arrogant, like, it's like the priests or the educated, like the scholars that think like these like arrogant nobles more concerned about matters of warfare than matters of like law or whatever, are completely insane because they love kobolds so much. It's just, there's just something about like that kind of universe that just really tickles me. Where like everything that you expect from like the factions is just like completely turned on its head. And it's like, okay, why do the orcs not like the kobolds? Well, the kobolds are like loyal and honest, and like they love hunting. Whereas like the orcs love taking trophies, and they love like absolutely like decimating their enemies and taking heads and putting them on spikes or whatever. And the kobolds just kind of see them as savages who don't respect nature. They're basically just like warriors without a purpose, like people that fight just for the sake of fighting, where the kobolds are there to like, they care about nature and they care about like their families, and they like the humans. And, again, it's like one thing about Arkain that I kind of disagree with. It's like in Arkain, one of the reasons the orcs hate the humans so much is because the humans engage in civil wars all the time, and they engage in intrigue, and they backstab each other, and they just don't like each other. And like the different kingdoms aren't always united with a common purpose. Whereas the orcs, besides for the Magtar, which are the red orcs, like in the original Warcraft 3, they were the demon-worshipping orcs. And they do seem to be like allied with demons in the Arkain universe, but instead of being slaves of the demons, it's more like they're allies rather than actually being like controlled by the demons, it seems like. But anyways, all the orcs are like one unified faction. There's no intrigue between them. If there's like a conflict, it's like, I challenge you to a duel, and whoever wins the duel controls the kingdom, or what have you. And it is kind of funny, because by the end, when the females are taking over the faction, now suddenly the orcs are super into intrigue and infighting and like being sneaky and talking about each other behind their backs and what have you. It's just, as soon as the females take over, everything went to hell with the orc faction. I don't think that was intended. I'm kind of exaggerating a little bit. The orcs are still pretty like straight up and up when the females take over, but I just find it funnier to imagine like that they suddenly start like cat fighting each other behind the scenes once the females take over. And again, you can have strong female characters. There are strong female characters in Warcraft 3 who run like their entire faction. As much as I love the Night Elves, like Tsunade from Tsunade. That's not it. That's the character from Naruto. I forget. What's this? Yeah. I forget how to pronounce the Night Elf woman. And I know that character really well. And basically everyone kind of thinks that she's like a bitch. It's like, even in the original, like when people played the original StarCraft, like she's always the one who's like always angry and always like going for the most extreme and like always talking down to her husband, despite her husband doing really important work behind the scenes. Like her husband is like the archdruid, like the most powerful druid, and he has to sleep in the what's called the Emerald Dream, where he like sleeps in a burrow underneath the ground, and his spirit travels throughout the land, speaking to other land spirits, healing nature, making sure that their alliances with their nature spirits are always strong. And he's not like being lazy or anything. He is doing like very important work. And at one point she's like, not all of us can sleep away the millennia in our little burrows and live our dream lives or whatever. And it's like, it's not like he wanted to be away from you. It's like his job of making sure that the alliance between the Night Elves and nature remains strong, and that like the demons aren't returning. And it's very important work. It's not like nothing. It's like, why are you mad at him? I mean, I get like being separated from your love interest for like 10,000 years. It's kind of hinted. I played through the campaign several times, and I got the impression that I can't even think of his name. I know Illidan, Malfurion, that's it. Malfurion slept for 10,000 years before eventually being woken up by his wife. And it's kind of like, why are they still together? It's like, after 10,000 years, you would think she would like move on and find somebody else. But watching the campaign again, it is kind of hinted that he may have woken up several times throughout the millennia, and it wasn't like he just slept for 10,000 years. No, there were several times where he had to be woken up to solve a crisis, and he spent a long time awake and spent that time like with his wife. Technically, I don't think they're technically married. I don't know if the Night Elves actually practice marriage. They just call each other like love and partner and darling or whatever. They never like refer to each other as wife and husband or what have you. And they never have kids either. That's another weird thing about the Night Elves. It's like after 10,000 years, you'd think eventually you would like, get lonely and want to have like a partner and like have a kid reproduce. And it's like so rare to see a Night Elf who has like an actual like wife and kids. Like there's Night Elves that have like a brother, and it's like, well, yeah, that Night Elf has been alive for 10,000 years. You'd think by now they would have like great grandchildren as well, and it's like, nope, they do not, because apparently Night Elves don't have any instinct to ever have children ever. And it just kind of gets weird after a while. Like, yeah, they're immortal, so they don't need to exactly replace their ranks. But, well, you would think that attrition would eventually kill a bunch of the Night Elves, and eventually you would want to have some children being born now and again, even if it's rare. I don't know. That's just me, though. It's like the same thing with the High Elves. But the High Elves, they're more likely to have children. Like, 10,000 years have passed and they have like great-great-great-grandchildren. It's like, well, it's not much better, but it still kind of makes sense. They're in more wars, they're more involved with world politics, so they need to replace their ranks a little bit more often. Their lives may not be as long. And they aren't, because the Night Elves had like some kind of immortality deal with a giant tree. Whereas the High Elves were using magic from a well to give them long lives, but not immortal lives. Stuff like that. I'm trying to think, like, what else? What kind of other, like, weird, like, combinations could you have? Like, where two races that you wouldn't expect to be allied would be allied with each other. And one of the things I was thinking about is like, well, both sides have humans, and both sides have dwarves, and both sides have orcs. Like, maybe the majority of the orcs are on one side, and the majority of humans are on another side, but there are like little onesies and twosies, a tribe here or there, or a kingdom here or there, that meet up with or like ally with the human kingdoms for one reason or another. And it's just like the way they prefer it. Like, they prefer doing things that way. I mean, it's just like an idea I had. God dang, dude. I'm trying so hard right now. I don't want to I'm driving right now, and I'm driving like halfway across the state. And I'm trying to avoid the freeway. I want to drive through the countryside. And the map keeps trying to redirect me back to the freeway. And I don't want to go on the freeway. I know there's like roads out in the wilderness or out in the farmlands where you can drive 55 miles per hour through the farms. And that's fast enough for what I'm doing, even though it's kind of late in the day. I don't mind getting there late, because no matter how I get there, I'm going to end up having trouble sleeping anyways. So I rather drive away from people where there aren't like a ton of like cars. Like, people who drive on the freeways here are crazy. I hate them. Like, they're awful to drive next to. Just absolutely terrible. Huh. Shooting range here. I really should buy a shotgun at some point. Anyways. I don't want to get all stressed out dealing with people on the freeway. I just want to drive through the rural areas. The only thing I have to worry about is maybe a deer jumping into the road once in a while. This thing keeps trying to redirect me to the freeway, and it's just like, no, I'm just going to head this direction, and eventually I'll find a road that I'm looking for. And eventually, hopefully, this thing figures itself out and realizes that I'm not trying to take the fastest route this time. I'm trying to take the scenic route. Phew. Anyways, what other weird combinations of races could there be? I guess you could have, like, the dwarves and the goblins working together, for example. So, like, in Warcraft 3... there are goblins that are on both sides, and they tend to be mercenaries, and they hire their services out to the highest bidder. And it just turns out that the orcs tend to be their, like, major employer. And they're they tinker with stuff. Tinkerers. Like, guys who make, like, machines and, like, toys and what have you, and, like, mines and explosives. And the dwarves tend to be the same kind of thing. They're the ones who, like, make the forges, and they mine out the mountains, and they make, like, the iron forges with the adamantium or the you know, what's the Lord of the Rings material that the Rings of Power was obsessed with? Terrible show, by the way. Absolutely awful way to make a series. Absolutely lore-breaking, terrible, terrible show. Oh, it's not adamantium. It's like... they make jewelry out of it. I can't remember. It's got one of those fancy, like, common fantasy metals that a lot of universes use. That may actually be the name of a real metal, but now it's been used for something that, like, is completely different. I can't think of it. But anyways, like, having the dwarves and the goblins, like, be allies with each other, because they're both, like, really interested in, like, tinkering with stuff. Or, I guess, like, the gnomes in Warcraft are, like, the tinkerers, so it would be, like, the gnomes and the goblins working together with, like, the orcs or something like that. Like, the two races that really love toys and explosives and other stuff like that. And that would be a kind of interesting thing to, like, kind of make sense. I'm trying to think of, like, say, like, ogres working with humans or something like that. Like, why would humans accept dumb ogres? What have you? Whereas in, like, Warcraft lore, ogres tend to be stupid. They tend to be one-headed, dumb brutes with two eyes. But the ones that learn magic become intelligent, and the magic actually mutates them. It causes them to grow a second head. This head only has one eye. And in this case, two heads really are better than one. And both heads are more intelligent than the average ogre. So, like, you have two heads on one body, and each head is smarter than the average ogre. Which is kind of a cool concept for ogres. And it, like, never comes up in the lore. Like, that's actual lore from, like, Warcraft 2. And it, like, never comes up in Warcraft 3. And, like, the death scream of the Ogre Magi and the Ogre Overlords, the ones that have two heads, is the same dumb brute voice that, like, the regular ogres have, instead of, like, the highly sophisticated ones. So it would be kind of cool. Whereas if you have, like, the ogres be like a human ally, and it's like the same thing in Warhammer 40,000, where the Ogryn are human, but they're like dumb big brutes that are a subspecies of humanity that grew up on a high gravity planet, and they were made big and bulky, and muscles and stature were more important than intelligence. So eventually these humans mutated to become less intelligent and more brutish, to the point where an Ogryn, a human ogre, is considered a genius if they can count up to 4. And that's with, like, cybernetic enhancements and, like, chemicals that make them more intelligent, and, like, brain implants and everything. Like, just something wild like that. But it would be, like, kind of interesting if the ogres are considered, like, the nice, loyal, like, honest, what have you, because the Ogryns in Warhammer 40k are beloved by the Imperial Guard, because they are loyal, they are honest, they will never, like, do anything that's against their leadership. They'll always, like, protect their own. They absolutely love the Emperor. Like, the political officers, the commissars, absolutely adore them, because even though they have to treat them like children, they are just so useful, and they're just so loyal that it's, like, impossible to not, like, treat them with respect, because at the very least you can point them in a direction and they're like, okay, I'll pray with you. You're afraid of getting into the tiny metal, like, in the tiny metal transport. I know you're claustrophobic. Let's pray to the Emperor together. Like, the commissar that, you know, will execute, like, one of their own humans for not wanting to, like, run into a meat grinder. They will never do such a thing to an Ogryn. So it would be kind of interesting to have, like, a human faction that absolutely adores ogres, because they're useful, they're good for building, they're, like, strong, they're good for, like, menial labor. And then the ogres that learn magic, that learn how to, like, grow the extra head, like, they're absolutely beloved by the mages. Like, they have a unique perspective. They're as intelligent as humans. They may be a little bit more practical than, like, a human mage, but they're just absolutely vital for, like, magical research or something like that. Just, like, absolutely just considered some of the most important allies to humanity, just based on their magical prowess. Like, that would be an interesting thing too. And again, it doesn't have to be that the orcs are all evil and the humans are all good. It's just, like, in terms of their, like, proclivities, like, you have these races be a subversion of what they are normally. Like, for example, in Warhammer Fantasy, it started out as a joke, but, like, it's a huge thing in Warhammer Fantasy for the dwarves to be utterly petty and absolutely just awful creatures. Like, if your great-great-great-great-great-grandfather accidentally insulted a dwarf, his grandchild will still hate your family to an absolutely insane degree, to the point where they will absolutely just take you out at the first opportunity. They will hunt you down. They will chase you down, even though you had nothing to do with your great-great-great-great-great-grandpa's, like, mistake. Even if the grandchild of that dwarf had no idea, was not alive when that mistake was made, they will still have a grudge against that human clan for all eternity until they believe that their grudge has been settled. And for a human, it'd be like, why do you hate me? Oh, it's something that my, like, great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather did? Why? Like, I had nothing to do with that. That's not my fault. Basically, a modern liberal is what these dwarves are. Dear God, dude. What is this guy doing? I mean, I get that this is not the wilderness, and this road is only like 35 miles per hour, but there's no one on this road at all. Anyways, this camera has been falling over this entire time. I keep having to fix it. And so, this video is almost an hour long, and it's basically my meandering about what I like in a fictional fantasy universe. So, I'll leave it there. I can get back to my videos. Bye, guys.